In this video I'm just going to look at two variations on the SEIKO 6139 7060. So I've got the black and the aquamarine one here right now, and the first one I'll look at is the aquamarine. So these were a Japanese only version, and you can tell because it's got the speed timer text on the dial. They also have different hands to the black version. They have the white and black hands that a lot of the other 6139 models have. So just having a look at this guy here, you can see there's a little bit of fading just on the yellow there on the dial, but in general it's quite good. The chip on the paint there on the hand, which I'll try and get closer. There we go. What that comes from is the chronograph sweep hand there has not been bent up at the tip, and what happens is if you set the chronograph, say when it's down, or if you reset the chronograph when it's, say, at 6 or something like that, it puts quite a bit of torque on the hand and it can move slightly, and what it can do is crash into the hand there. So when this gets serviced, I'll fix that paint chip and also bend the tip of the chronograph hand up. And according to the SEIKO service manuals, that's what they actually tell you to do with it for that exact purpose. So just having a look at the loom is pretty good on this one, so I don't think I'd touch that. And the rotating ring works, which means that the gear system is present on the stem. So these use exactly the same sort of gearing system as the 6139 6002 and several other of the 6139 and 6106 models. They all use the same sort of system. Just turning it over there. The case is good and it's unpolished. It's got the original dimpled crown. The case back is good. You can see there's a bit of dirt on it. And the other side there is quite good as well. So in this case I'd just do a very light rub on the case. I wouldn't sand it or anything like that. I just take some polishing paste to that and just clean it up a bit and leave it alone. These have a kanji date. I'm not sure if they also have English. Yeah, they've got English as well, so it's English and kanji. This model in particular is a 1972 model, and you can tell the date by the serial number there. So the first two alphanumeric numbers in the date, in the serial number, will tell you the date. So the first one there's 2, which means it's 1972. Now as you get into the 80s and 90s, it gets a bit confusing with those, so you have to know what era the SEIKO watch is from. So for example, if it was made in the 80s, it would be 1982, and if it was made in the 90s, it would be 1992. So that's where it gets a little bit confusing. The second figure there is the month. So I happen to know that N means November, but basically it goes 1 to 9, and then it changes to letters. So that's got the horseshoe style date. The horseshoe style information on the back as well. Having a look at the bracelet, that's the original Japanese domestic market bracelet, and it's generally very uncommon to find these watches on those. They either broke sometime in the 70s, or someone replaced them with a stretchy band or a leather strap or something, so it's fairly uncommon usually to find these. But beyond that, it's in pretty good condition. It needs a new crystal. I think that might be chipped on the side, so it may not be possible to refurbish that one, but yeah, no, it's in quite good condition. So I'll put that one aside and I'll move to the black one here, which I've actually got as a parts watch, so it's not going to be rebirthed, this one. And you can see straight away there the differences, so not only in the dial colour and also the hand colour, but they also use a different type of hand on there. So these ones have a stick style hand, and it's got a very small loom area. They also have different markers on the dial, which you'll see between those. So that one there's got a thin stick marker. These have a thicker rhodium plated brass marker with a loom dot on the end. Now you can see straight away this one here is absolutely caked in dirt. It actually came out of the Middle East, so they're sort of renowned for being fairly hard on these sort of watches, and because people there are of lower sort of socio-economic standing, quite often they're fixed beyond what they should be fixed. I was quite lucky to get this one in good condition, relatively good condition anyway. So you can see there, that's all caked up with dirt underneath as well, and there's dirt caked on the side there. The case is actually in pretty good condition, and these are a very solid case, so that's a pretty good case. Once that's cleaned up, you'll be amazed at how much better they look. So you can see that the crystal was definitely well past its use by date. The day system in there, now I think from memory, yeah, it only changes the date. So there's something wrong inside the movement, or the stem is too short, or there's too much dirt under the stem to also change the day. So with these watches, they're pressed to change, and that should change the day, and it doesn't. So the day disc in there is a German day disc, which is, considering this one came out of Israel, I'm not too surprised by that. But there was also the Kanji date disc. There was several other languages as well that they came out in. Now I'm just going to try that. So the indicator ring moves, which means that the correct stem and parts to move are present. What I'll do now, you can see there the pushes are missing. But what I'll do now is I'll just pop the back off and just drop the movement out. Now please excuse me if I fumble a bit here. It's a little bit tricky to work behind the camera because you're doing it at a distance. So just looking at the movement there, it may be hard to pick up on camera. You can see there's a bit of rust in there, so see rust there as well. And it's had some rust there, so that tells me it's had water intrusion through the crown, because if you get that, the water sort of, you get drops of water around this area here, and you get that rust. Beyond that, the movement's not too bad. So the oscillating weight there moves. Now, this is a scrap movement, so I'm not being particularly gentle here, but yeah, the balance doesn't move a lot, which tells me there's probably some rust or some dirt or something in there as well. Yeah, no, I'd never treat a good movement poking around in it with tweezers like this and without some finger cots on. But yeah, you can definitely see some water intrusion there. Also, the holding ring that's meant to go on the back there, that's missing off of this. I've got a spare one which I'm going to use as part of the project, but yeah, without that you can see the movement, the whole movement moves. So it's actually not held into the watch properly. So if you get a watch that's missing that, it's literally not going to keep, it's not going to stay in the case properly, and you'll see it from the front. You'll actually see the dial drop down, and you'll see gaps and stuff, and it just looks terrible. So let's drop the stem out and just see how we're going. Anyway, so you can see quite a bit of rust on there, so I'll try and clean that off, but if it's too rusted I'll have to replace that. The reason I don't like the rusted gears staying on, here we go, is because I don't want flakes of rust coming off and migrating into the movement. That would be a bad result. So there you go. So you can see the seal there is hardened and failed a long time ago, and the water's just got in there and rusted that up. So it moves a little bit, but certainly not anywhere near what it should. So we'll have a look at that, but usually if they're quite rusted up, I end up replacing the gear with one of the reproduction ones that I have here, and that solves the problem. But that's what actually kills a lot of these stems, is that rust. So the seal, which is just there, fails and the rust just gets in, and that rusts that whole thing out, and then it breaks. Excuse me. Also, the rust gets into the back of the stem and rusts the back of the stem up a bit, and then the crown just breaks off. So that's usually the mode of failure with these. Now just moving back over to the movement again, and I'm just going to take it out of the thing there, and just bearing in mind this is a scrap movement. So I'll just get, there we go. So you can see there it's got quite a good dial, which is one of the most important parts with these watches. So if you can't get a good dial, you're never going to get a good rebuild on the watch. It's always going to look beaten up, and I'm very picky, and I can't wear a beaten up watch. So if the dial's good, even if the case looks slightly tatty, they still look good. But if that's gone, then yeah, I don't really generally consider it much hope for it. So you can see there the hands have got some corrosion on them. Now hopefully I'll be able to clean that up. It looks like it's not too bad, but what I do with those is I actually dip them in some in a solution that removes that corrosion, and hopefully that should be good from there. But yeah, that's what these look like. The hands actually haven't got much UV fading. Quite often these hands fade to a really dirty orange type thing, and don't have the original colour. But the original colour is actually an orange red, and these ones are pretty close to that. So I'd say that's a good result. Again, there the orange bit there, that's faded a bit, but that always happens with these dials. And there's not much you can do about it. It just comes down to the sort of paint that was used at the time and how it reacts to UV. So that's the movement out of the watch. And hopefully I can get a good result cleaning that up. If I just move over onto the bracelet now. This is the bracelet that came on the export models. So when it comes into focus, there you go. So it's a H-link style bracelet, but it's a square, like sort of a squarish type H-link. And from what I can see there, the center links were polished and the middle links were brushed. And again, this is absolutely filthy. So you can see there, just caked up dirt. The buckle is pretty good. These actually had a satin finish on them. Quite often when they're refinished, they're sanded because it's very difficult to put a satin finish back on them. But that's not too bad, that one there. Usually they're dented as well, and this hasn't got any dents, so that's pretty good. You can see there more filth. There's just a lot of filth in this one, and it always builds up in there as well. So if you're wearing a watch as a daily wearer, I'd recommend every now and then just at least rinsing it out, and if you've got an ultrasonic cleaner and are able to get the bracelet off, you know, once every 6 months or something, drop it in the ultrasonic cleaner and just get all that off. What happens if this is left to build up? It does one of two things. So it either attracts dirt and turns into a grinding paste, and the whole thing gets very sloppy and loose, and something will eventually break and it'll fall off, or it builds up and it protects the bracelet from scratching and damage. So in any case, I'm pretty sure that you don't want that on your wrist. So that's someone else's sweat and oil and acid and dirt and whatever else building up. So if you're getting these watches, like, definitely get them cleaned. I mean, that's just gross. I haven't put my nose close enough to smell it, but I can get a slight whiff of something coming off of there. So yeah, definitely going in the ultrasonic ASAP. Anyway, I'll leave that there, and look out for more videos on these watches. I've got plenty more to make, and I'll put some more up soon. Thanks.